Alright, really quick video. Really quick video just detailing roughly where I'm up to now. Because obviously I'm way behind on the blog. So, long story short, I've basically managed to get in several different versions of the vehicle that you can possess and two working player characters. Problem I've got at the moment is I only have one working gamepad, and I need the gamepad to test out the vehicles. So I've not completed the multiplayer component yet. That's work in progress. So I've only just put this on now just to show that I can actually get two characters moving around in the world independently. Make them both jump at the same time, just so you can see they're actually in sync with each other. What I've also managed to get them to do, which was not easy, is to possess vehicles at the same time. What I can't do right now is show you two vehicles working independently at the same time because I can only control one of them. Uh, just not set up keyboard controls for the other one yet because they don't really work the correct way for the racing game. But what I should be able to show you it doing is despawning, oh sorry, respawning and unpossessing the vehicle each individually. So if you look there, they're still individually controlled. So I'll jump again, just show they're still in sync. Where it does run into a bit of a problem, say if I have two vehicles possessed. Now if I put these next to each other, it's the wrong vehicle. If I put these next to each other and then try and swap the vehicles over or have one player get out, it then goes kind of wrong. So it's still working now. If I get this player in here, still have control. See, even the way it doesn't work is inconsistent. Before I was having problems with unpossessing player one, the player on the top. Now I'm unable to unpossess player two, and in fact, what it has done spawned a new version of player two right there. So there's obviously an issue with that. Quickly just go over what the blueprints are and what they're doing. Need to find my blueprint window again. Okay, this is all gone a bit wrong. I'm just quickly going to rearrange a couple of windows. Which blueprint is this? This is the Grav Racer blueprints. Okay. It's hard to know where to start. So I've had to set up a few standard things. So you got your game mode, which essentially just handles the player spawn. That's really all it is. It looks at how many spawn points there are. I've put 4 in at the moment, and it will also look at the max number of players that you set. Now, this is actually for 2-player. Always worth pointing out that UE4 is base 0, so player 1 is actually 0. So that might look a little bit odd if you don't know, but that's why that's player 1. Oh, sorry, 2 players max, but you actually put 1 in there. It's because UE4 works from 0. So all that's doing is looking at the number of players versus the number of players spawned, and then matching the two up and dynamically setting the player ID so we always know what the player ID is. Don't have to reference that again, that's done right at the start. So it's the game mode. There's not really a whole lot in the player controller. That's just as standard for now, but there will be more stuff going into that later. That is what is going to store things like your lap times, your progression in terms of what you might have unlocked, things like that. That all gets stored in that player controller, and it should create an individual reference for each player. So that's what I need to sort out next is this possession issue and why it's getting confused between the two. What I've got in the character, it's all very much the standard third-person character. The only thing I've really added is this input action, which only works when you're possessing the third-person character, or the Grav Racer third-person character, I should say. And that's literally just a bit of logic. Ignore that. That's just for testing. I'll get rid of it now. In fact, that's really just for testing purposes. But that's just going to say get the nearby player, or sorry, get the vehicle, and then within the player blueprint, talk to that vehicle and say I am the nearby player, and then as long as all that matches up, it'll fire this possession request to the vehicle itself. Just find that. So that's where the possession request comes in. Really simple, little bit of logic. Anyone who's messed around with possession before knows this. It's just unpossess what you've got, possess the new thing, and here's what the pawn is, and then destroy your old actor. That's where that nearby player reference is being set. So that's being set in the Grav Racer, being set by the Grav Racer BP in the character BP itself. In terms of the possession that's going on with the Grav Racer, all it's doing is saying, okay, we've got a third-person character. Set that reference in the third-person character nearby player again. Get that player ID, and then make sure there's a reference to that in the Grav Racer. Now, this is probably where it's going wrong, and I'm getting problems with unpossessing the character when they are next to the same racer. Seems to be getting the two mixed up here. So we're then also making sure that we get the right player controller index. Again, need to look at that again, see why it's going wrong. It's something to do with this. So we're setting that as a reference within this Grav Racer blueprint. And then we're just telling it, yeah, we're ready to be possessed because there's a player within the trigger volume. And that goes to the player blueprint and says you are in range of a vehicle. That also goes to the player blueprint and tells it this is the vehicle you are in range of. So the possession request itself, again, standard checks. Are you ready to be possessed? Are you already possessed? And if yes, then no. So take the reference to the nearby player controller this time, which is an important point. If you just get the player reference, you're not going to find the right thing. If you get the player controller reference, you know that you got the right ID. So it's saying to it there, unpossess the player that you got now, possess the new one, use the pawn self, which is the racer itself, and then destroy your old actor, which is your player character. And then obviously saying is possessed, yes, and no longer ready for possession, set no. There's some debug stuff on this, which I'll have to ask you to just ignore, but this is just the logic for leaving the vehicle. Did have some more conditions in here, but while I was trying to narrow down what is causing the possession problem, I've removed some of those. Do I need that? No. So again, we're just checking, are you currently possessed? Obviously, if the answer is false, then you don't need to do anything. If the answer is true, then as before, get that reference. Making sure you're the same player controller, basically. Because remember, we've not swapped the player controller, we just swapped what the pawn is. We swapped from the mannequin over to the vehicle. So I'm saying, you're still the same player controller, which you can only be, okay. And then we're just making sure that when we reset, the ID goes back to what it should be. Now again, this is a point of failure. I think I've just worked out something wrong and it's telling it the wrong player. So I need to go back and look at that again. But that's now saying, okay, spawn back in a third person character. And it's looking at this possession area. Sorry, the possession area is the volume that just says, okay, you are within range to enter this vehicle. The player respawn is just this scene component. Doesn't really have any geometry. It doesn't need it. It's just a point in space to say respawn the player back here. That's just to confirm that it's working. And then obviously you're setting is possessed in the vehicle blueprint back to no. That's just handling the location of the spawn. More or less, for this particular instance of the vehicle anyway, more or less everything else is the same as you've already seen. I've done some tweaks to the numbers for the gravity and things like that, but really all the movement logic has not been touched because I've been trying to work out that multiplayer component to it, which obviously I'm very close to getting right. But I don't want to concentrate entirely on that because obviously multiplayer game is fine, but if the vehicles are crap, then you haven't got anything worth playing with. So I think for now, I'm going to be happy with what I've got in terms of multiplayer. I'm going to leave it at that for now. And the next step is to come up with a bunch of different vehicles for the players to test, see which control schemes work better, see which control schemes work better over what kind of ground, and then I can start building up tracks from there. So that is really about it so far.